So why should you bother to make your contracts visual? Well, I guess the question is, why wouldn't you? You see, if we want contracts to be read and understood and used, then visualization's a really good tool to help us do that. On top of all the other things that I'm encouraging you to do with your contracts. Imagine a contract is effectively words written in a foreign language to produce a particular outcome, to carry out a project. And that you're given and told to go off, do it then. It's a bit icky, isn't it? But you can't ask questions. You've been given this. It's assumed you can follow it. I'm trying to find an analogy, a metaphor, an example that wasn't contracts, because there aren't actually that many visual contracts around. And those that are around, well, I've talked about them endlessly. And then I remembered a book that I found on my grandmother's shelf. And it's called Cooking is Child's Play. And it's written in French. And the recipes help you to understand how to do it. And it's designed for children. So it takes the approach that all the people using this may be children, may be new to cooking, may not really understand the jargon. So it tries to be as clear and precise as possible. And in fact, on the first page of the book, it tells you how to make a paper cup, fill it with rice, and then find a cup in your house that fits, because cups are not equal. And getting the wrong amount of an ingredient could spell the difference between success and disaster in carrying out a recipe. Here's an example when it comes to what we call cheese straws and the French called allumettes au fromage. It has all the different cups, all the different things you need to include in your recipe. Brilliant. It also says at the bottom that when you've cut out the pastry, it's the size of this book open, not just the size of this book. And it shows you precisely the size of the allumettes that you're going to create. It's clear, you don't need a ruler. It doesn't tell you 2 centimeters by whatever, or inches, or parts of a kilometer, or yards, or whatever the measurement was in your part of the world in those days. This book is designed to make it easy to read because it's full of color. All the recipes are on one side, illustrations on another. They're in logical order. It's just a joy to pick up. And I have to say, I've never cooked anything from it, but it is a book that I'm going to keep on my shelf because it's the perfection when it comes to cookbooks. I don't know about you, but I never cook from a book if I haven't seen the finished article. So it's designed to be read. It's designed to be understood by using really clear language, simple as possible, and by illustrating with pictures. And it's designed to be used because of the logical flow and the fact that it really helps you every step of the way. In other recipes, it tells you the tricky bits, how to cut the inside of an apple out, how to not salt the yolk of an egg, how to barbecue a pig. So all sorts of things are covered. So it's designed for the users. Whoever wrote this, Michel Oliver, was probably not a children's teacher, but he was getting into the mind of people who didn't cook all of the time. When it comes to contracts, what do contracts traditionally look like? Well, dense walls of text. Not particularly exciting, not particularly full of white space, not visually appealing. They've got to compete with the internet. They've got to compete with our smartphones. They've got to compete with social media. They've got to compete with notifications. They've got to compete with all the other things vying for our attention that are colourful, that are moving, that are visual. I'm not sure whether those contracts cut it when it comes to grabbing our attention anymore. But also, not only do they not make us want to read them, but they don't help us to understand or use them. So the JCT contracts have been around since about 1963, the forerunners since the late 19th century. And JCT contracts kind of have always been pretty text heavy. Admittedly, the original 1963 contract was only 25 pages long. This one's kind of more like 75, maybe even 100. Well, back in 1972, a chap called Glyn Jones decided that he would look at visualizing JCT contracts, and exactly the same clause that I've just shown you, or at least a forerun of it, he created a flowchart for. Now, Glyn Jones wasn't interested in visualization as such. He was looking at a new approach to the standard form contract. He was interested in automation. Yes, that's right. 1972, 50 years ago, he was looking at automating a JCT contract using flowcharts to be able to put that information into a processor, a basic computer, and create the ones and zeros that would automate this contract. He was so far ahead of his time. I have to thank Peter Edge, an after dinner speaker, for giving me this, who found it in his dad's house and knew the only contract lawyer in construction that would be interested. So thank you, Peter. But visualizing flowcharts, great way of changing the way we can think about contracts. Now you might be thinking, why hasn't she used a visual example of a contract? There aren't that many that are publicly available, but big companies are doing this. Shell are in the Financial Times talking about this 3 years ago. Airbus have created more visual contracts. I've worked through World Commerce and Contracting with other global corporates who are visualizing their contracts by putting color, icons, tables, diagrams, flowcharts in. When I worked for the Federation of Master Builders we put guidance notes and timelines in to help clients to understand a little bit more about these projects. And I'm not alone. But visuals can really change the way a contract reads and feels and the emotions it drives in the recipient. You see, we shouldn't really be using contracts as a way to break the trust that the sales and procurement team have so carefully built. We need to take them on that journey. We need to draw them in, not push them away. So visuals can help people to want to read your contract. They can really help people to understand your contract, particularly the key processes in them that they need in order to make whatever you're making, whether it's cheese straws or multi-million-pound construction projects. And they can really make sure that the processes that are in these contracts are used perfectly. We've all had it. We rang up a client going, excuse me, you don't seem to have paid my bill. And they go, our standard terms are 30 days. It's like, yes, but you signed my contract and my standard terms, clearly written in my contract, are 14 days. We've got a bit of a mismatch between their processes and the contract processes. And the more we can visualize those processes, the more clarity and understanding they have, the more it's easier to spot that before your invoice is overdue. And since, well, non-payment is one of the biggest causes of disputes across any sector, across any country in the world, well, even if you only make your payment process visual, you'll be avoiding disputes that nobody wants to have. So think about it. Put visuals in your contracts. It continues to safeguard your business by making sure they're read, understood, and used. And you know that visuals will not annoy your clients.